Kang, Princess Kitana, Sub-Zero, Jax, Sonya Blade. These are the defenders of the realm.
Mortal Kombat. You think you know Mortal Kombat? You think it's all about brutal fatalities, blood-soaked battles, and spine-ripping glory? Well, what if I told you that in the 90s, Mortal Kombat became a Saturday morning cartoon with no fatalities, cheesy one-liners, and moral lessons? And get this, the same studio that made the violent movies made this kid-friendly version too. Yeah, this is Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm. The cartoon so wild, weird, and watered down that you'll never look at your favorite fighters the same way again. But trust me, the behind-the-scenes drama, bizarre trivia, and laughable censorship might make this one of the most fascinating failures in cartoon history. Want to relive the madness? Check out the link in the description for the DVD and take a wild nostalgia trip back to the 90s. So here's the setup. Defenders of the Realm aired in 1996 on USA Network. Yes, the same network that gave us Walker, Texas Ranger, and Silk Stockings. It was part of a Saturday morning lineup that ran back-to-back with the Street Fighter cartoon, and somehow it was supposed to teach kids about teamwork and morals through Mortal Kombat. Only 13 episodes were made, and honestly, that was enough.
The pool of prophecy never lies. Raiden's minions will enter into battle in 3 hours. More than enough time for you and I to make our little journey.
It tried to jam the complex lore of the Mortal Kombat universe into a weekly Saturday morning slot, and in the process, it stripped away all the grit and bloodshed that made the franchise famous. Instead of dark realms and gruesome showdowns, we got team huddles, friendly rivalries, and PG-rated cybervillains. The idea was noble, but the execution, painfully awkward. The show had an identity crisis from the start. Was it an action show, a morality play, or a bad toy commercial? Strangely, this cartoon wasn't just some random licensed cash grab. It was actually produced by Threshold Entertainment, the same team behind the first 2 Mortal Kombat movies. That means they reused scenes and storylines from the films, but they toned everything down. Remember Sub-Zero getting impaled by an ice stake in the movie? In the cartoon, he just gets lightly frozen. Shang Tsung falling onto deadly spikes? Nope. He just kind of flops onto the ground. And Kano, instead of getting wrecked by Sonya, he's arrested. This ain't Mortal Kombat. This is Mortal Compromise. The worst part? These toned-down flashbacks pretend to have the same emotional weight and danger as their movie counterparts. You see Liu Kang defeat Shang Tsung with a punch, but there are no stakes, no danger, nothing like that at all. It's just boring. What was once an intense climax became a light tap on the shoulder. The cartoon wanted to borrow the credibility of the films while stripping away everything that made them iconic. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this show growing up or you felt like it was corny as well. Let's talk about the Cybers, aka the Cybernetic units, introduced in episode 1, Combat Begins Again. Led by Sektor and Cyrax, these mindless robot soldiers were called Ninja Gizmos by Sonya Blade and Mindless Cybernetics by Stryker. These things were clearly robotic. Sparks, wires, and grunts when destroyed, no blood, no gore. Think SWAT bots from Sonic the Hedgehog, but clunkier. What's weird is they have voice boxes, speak, grunt, and even scream in pain, but they're still treated like empty drones. They look like knockoffs of Sektor and Cyrax, red eyes, same general build, but with 3 fingers per hand and weird square holes in their chests.
With Sektor and Cyrax, we're not dealing with mindless cybernetics.
They better have brains because they sure be ugly.
Let's start toasting those freaks!
Nightwolf called them Cybers, which is exactly what Kano references in Mortal Kombat 2, saying, "You got electronets or rocket launchers?" Terminator? No. Kano? Ain't much of a cyber then. Nice deep cut, but still weird. Also, Cyrax uses mind control to command them, pointing dramatically and yelling, "Annihilate them," as they charge in.
Annihilate them.
It implies they have a CPU brain rather than anything human, but they still grunt like they're in pain. So, are they machines? Are they people? Are they both? It's a strange gray area that the writers never clarify. Their design is inconsistent, their behavior is confusing, and their function seems to change depending on the needs of the plot. So, what do you think? Were they people or were they machines? Up next, get ready for some more confusion and so many things totally in reverse. This show constantly contradicts the games. Sub-Zero? He's a good guy here. Jax? Sometimes he has his metal arms, sometimes he takes them off like gloves. No explanation. Cyrax is African American in the games. In the show, he's Asian. Sektor is Asian in the games. In the show, he's not. Cabal's face? Based on his freaky face fatality? Yes, they showed that. And Reptile and Baraka? Now they're Komodai and Carbrak. Totally new names, same designs.
You are finished.
They even introduced new characters like Nightwolf, now a full-on tech support guy. Ruby, a character that's like Jade but red. Also, the show straight up erases characters like Johnny Cage, Kung Lao, Melina, Sindel, and more. Some were never even mentioned. To make matters worse, some fan favorites are portrayed in ways that totally clash with their established lore. The Elder Sub-Zero, later revealed to be Noob Saibot in the games, is presented as a random memory. Quan Chi shows up with a magical crystal that manipulates everyone, but his portrayal is far from menacing. The result? A show that tries to expand the MK universe, but just confuses longtime fans. Let's talk about the cast. Because believe it or not, Defenders of the Realm brought in some serious voice talent, like shockingly serious. And while the animation might have been low budget, the voices were absolute A-list for 90s animation. Clancy Brown, yeah, Mr. Krabs himself voiced Raiden. Brown's voice is iconic, powerful, commanding, and full of presence. This is the same man who played the Kurgan in Highlander, voiced Lex Luthor in the DC animated universe, and even starred in The Shawshank Redemption. It's surreal hearing his booming voice delivering PSA-level moral lessons, especially when he's capable of sounding like the literal embodiment of doom. And believe it or not, Clancy Brown once said in interviews that he enjoys doing voice work more than live action. He finds it more freeing. Ron Perlman voiced Stryker. This one's wild. Perlman, known for his gruff intensity in Hellboy, Sons of Anarchy, and Blade 2, gives his all as the most vanilla character in the Mortal Kombat lineup. Stryker was never a fan favorite, yet Perlman somehow made him sound like the gravel-voiced veteran leader of a rebellion.
Believe me, I'm as sick of it as anyone. But we have to defend the Earth realm at all costs, and the best way to beat our enemies is with a united front.
He also once said in a 2010 convention interview that he barely remembered recording the lines for the show. It was just another paycheck, and had no idea it was Mortal Kombat until years later. Iconic. Cree Summer voiced Princess Kitana, and honestly, it's one of the most consistent performances in the series. Cree Summer is an absolute legend. She voiced over 100 animated characters, including Penny in Inspector Gadget, Elmira in Tiny Toon Adventures, and Susie Carmichael in Rugrats. She also voiced Max Gibson in Batman Beyond. Her voice is constantly recognizable, and even though Kitana was often underwritten, Cree gave her elegance, warmth, and strength.
I have but one father, and he fell at your hands. It is you who are the usurper.
Off-screen, Cree is also a powerful activist and singer, with a devoted fan base that knows her beyond just cartoons. Olivia Dabo voiced Sonya Blade. Many remember her from the Wonder Years, but her voice acting resume is deep. She's done roles in Justice League Unlimited, Star Wars The Clone Wars, and more. In an odd bit of trivia, she was born in England, but frequently voiced American characters. She gave Sonya a sharper edge, and while some of her lines were painfully cheesy, she delivered them like a pro.
I'm not trying to be nosy, I'm really worried about Jax. And I know you must have a way to look in on him. Besides, I have a funny feeling that there's something wrong.
Fun fact, Olivia once did stage Shakespeare and then recorded MK lines the same week. Dorian Harewood voiced Jax, and this guy, criminally underrated. Not only did he voice Shredder in several Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episodes, but he also starred in Full Metal Jacket, Roots, The Next Generations, and dozens of TV dramas. His version of Jax was bold, confident, and grounded. He brought weight to every line, whether he was smashing enemies or giving an inspirational speech.
I need to get away from this endless fighting to sort out my life. I just don't know if I can do this anymore.
In interviews, Harewood has spoken about how animation gave him creative freedom he didn't always get in live-action roles. Sounds pretty similar to what Ron Perlman said too, right? Luke Perry, yes, Beverly Hills 90210 Luke Perry voiced Sub-Zero. You could argue this is one of the wildest casting choices of the decade. The teen heartthrob known for playing Dylan McKay as a brooding bad boy, now voicing a literal ice ninja? And yet it worked. He gave Sub-Zero a calm, noble demeanor that somehow matched the character's redemption arc.
I've come to warn you that Scorpion is on his way from Outworld to invade Earth.
You're certain Scorpion is coming?
Yes, but there's no way to be sure where the dimensional rip will take place until it begins.
Perry would later voice Rick Jones in the Incredible Hulk animated series and even appeared on The Simpsons as himself. He had surprising range, and this voice role is often forgotten in his legacy. Together, this cast brought Defenders of the Realm a level of quality it honestly didn't deserve. These actors were veterans, bringing depth to lines like, "The realms must unite," and "We have to believe in each other." And while no one could save the show from its awkward scripts or PG-rated fight scenes, the voice performances were one of the few things that actually worked. But perhaps the most shocking part, none of these powerhouse actors could save the show from being cancelled after just one season. Even the combined forces of Hellboy, Mr. Krabs, Dylan McKay, and Susie Carmichael weren't enough to keep this realm from falling. This show went hard on crossover potential. Remember the Street Fighter cartoon? There's a plot thread involving a mysterious guy called Warrior King, who travels between shows hunting for a powerful orb. That orb appears in Defenders of the Realm in the episode Resurrection, where it falls into the hands of Shang Tsung. Raiden tosses the orb through a portal, and it ends up in the Wing Commander Academy animated show. Yes, you heard that right. This cartoon linked together 3 shows across 3 networks like it was building a shared cartoon universe before Marvel ever did it.
It's over.
You're finished, reptile!
What's wild is a Warrior King himself only shows up as a shadowy figure with no lines. It's such a low-effort crossover, but it's technically canon. And unless you watched all 3 shows and paid super close attention, you'd never even notice the connection. It's one of those obscure trivia gems that only hardcore fans pick up on. There's one episode that fans still love, Old Friends Never Die. It features Smoke as a brainwashed villain serving Shao Kahn. But through the power of friendship with Sub-Zero, his human soul fights through the programming. It's genuinely emotional. No joke. Flashbacks show him as a normal guy before automation, and by the end, he breaks free. It's basically Mortal Kombat's version of the Iron Giant, and people call it the best episode in the series. It stands out because it actually takes time to explore backstory and relationships. Smoke and Sub-Zero's bond feels real, and the emotional payoff is earned.
You do remember our oath.
Yes, but you are an enemy of the Lin Kuei, so we can no longer be friends.
Unlike most episodes that rush from scene to scene with paper-thin dialogue, this one slows down and lets a character journey breathe. It's the one time the show remembers it's based on a rich universe with actual lore. Here's the deal. Mortal Kombat without fatalities is like Street Fighter without fights, and Defenders of the Realm has 0 fatalities. Sure, a few characters die, like a frozen and shattered guard, or Jack smashing someone off screen with a line like, "Rest in peace," or should I say, pieces. But blood, gore, brutality, all gone. Instead, you got PSAs, cheesy teamwork messages, and lines like, "We must defend Earthrealm with honor." Barf. The show tries to reach lessons about trust, friendship, and honor in the middle of what's supposed to be a bloody martial arts tournament. Every fight ends with a handshake. Every conflict is resolved with dialogue. The same Mortal Kombat that once gave us spine rips is now giving us after-school specials. It's like asking a lion to purr. And even with all that, they still had loyal fans, and some critics ripped the show apart. Let's just say Defenders of the Realm didn't exactly go out with a flawless victory. OneUp.com called it a terrible one-liner packed train wreck of a kids show. Gamefront labeled the show as an abomination. Game Radar dragged it for being violence-free and filled with corny life lessons. And Dorkly put it on their list of the worst animated video game shows ever.
Relying too much on machinery and not enough on gut instincts? You're a shaman. You've got great inner tools.
It only lasted one season, and honestly, that was generous. The critics weren't wrong. The show had potential, but it felt like it was constantly fighting itself. On one hand, it wanted to be a cool, edgy show for fans of the games. On the other, it had to stay squeaky clean for a Saturday morning audience. That balancing act, a complete fail. Look, this show might be objectively terrible, the animation mid, the writing laughable, the continuity non-existent. But if you're a 90s kid and if you remember watching this after school or on a Saturday morning, it still hits you with that nostalgic uppercut. And sometimes that's enough. Want to relive the chaos? Remember, you can watch the full series here on DVD, linked in the comments below. Did you grow up watching Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm? Which moment stood out to you? Smoke breaking free, Sub-Zero's redemption, or just how hilariously bad some of the episodes were? Let me know in the comments. And if you love these deep dives into nostalgic cartoon chaos, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a super thanks to help this channel keep fighting strong. Until next time, fight on.